Good morning. Thank you very much to all participants joining us online for this training session, and thank you also to our host institution today, where participants are gathering for the on-site version of this webinar, that is the Belize Training and Employment Center of the Institute for Technical and Vocational Training in Belize City. Thank you very much. Welcome to the fourth dedicated training in open government and open data for non-government stakeholders of the project Promoting an Open Government Ecosystem in Belize, implemented by the Trust for the Americas and the Department for Effective Public Management of the Organization of American States, with the support of the Embassy of the United States of America in Belize. My name is Mike Mora. I'm a specialist with the Department for Effective Public Management of the OAS, where I coordinate activities in different areas such as digital and open government, open data, among others. I'm joined by Mr. Henry Wade in Belize City. He is the project local coordinator and facilitated the on-site version of this online session as we speak. Thank you also to all participants there gathering right now and those ones online. Today, we especially would like to thank Cuestion Pública in Colombia, Ojo-Público in Peru, and La Diaria in Uruguay, represented here through the speakers of the day, who are going to talk to us in light of their experiences about data journalism. What is it? How they've done it? What are the attributes of different cases that they have worked on? And in that way, that's what we're going to be talking about with these speakers today. New publishing platforms are empowering everyone to gather and share data digitally, turning into information. That's great. It's happening more so now than before. And in a world of fake news, data journalism or data journalism brings journalism back to its very roots. So we're happy to bring this very last session of the series that we had organized with the Trust for the Americas and to civil society organizations in Belize, specifically to talk about data journalism. The Open Government and Open Data session that we begin today, that we will finish today, actually are open to anyone from civil society. That for the purpose of this project, we consider part of the open government ecosystem of Belize, that is civil society organizations, foundations, private sector, academia, and any other citizen interested in participating. Our goal is to embrace, specialize, and develop skills in a dedicated group of stakeholders that can become agents for change, willing to support innovation in public management and public service delivery through open government. So I want to thank you again for your attendance and commitment, as this is the final session of the series. Please, we encourage you to revert the knowledge that you're about to receive, and also from the last versions, share with your community, with your colleagues. That will be great. You can easily find the resources of this project on this Facebook page. I will share that information. Actually, it's already shared in the chat. Click on it and take a look of those. And again, to remind you all that the video and materials related to this session will be also shared with you afterwards. For questions about the project and how to engage, please contact our project local coordinator in Belize, Mr. Henry Wade. We will also have his information on the chat in this chat room. At the end of the session, once the three presentations are over, we're going to go into a Q&A session. Mr. Wade will be facilitator from Belize City that session. Thank you again. Okay, without further ado, I would like to present the speakers of the day. That is Mrs. Claudia Baez, joining us from Colombia. She's on the bottom right side of the screen. Ana Tuduri from Uruguay. She's on the bottom left of the screen. We seem to miss David Hidalgo, but he had joined us earlier and most likely will reconnect again in a few minutes. And he will be connecting from Peru. They all three are renowned experts and bring practical and life experience in digital data and data journalism, and of course for the pursuit of open government and open data. So we're very happy to have you here. Okay, The first presentation of this session will be delivered by Claudia Baez from Colombia. Thank you very much, Claudia. I'm going to ask Anna and Henry to turn your cameras off. I'm going to turn my camera off as well, so we can have Claudia for the beginning of this presentation. Thank you very much. Henry, you can turn your camera off. That will be great, and we move on to Claudia as well.
Okay. I put the microphone on. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, Claudia. Let me introduce you, and I'll let you go. Claudia Baez is a journalist specializing in database analysis. She is a co-founder of the Colombian digital media Cuestion Pública. She has experience in carrying out reporting with data for digital media outlets, as well as managing digital journalism projects. She was grantee of the International Center for Journalism in 2016, where she formed part of the entrepreneur and innovation team at ProPublica. Her work has been published in El Tiempo, El Espectador, ProPublica, Univision, and France 24, all very well-known media outlets. She has a master's in economic and social development studies with a specialization in industrial development and project evaluation from the Sorbonne University in Paris. She's an ambassador for Chicas Poderosas Colombia, a movement that brings women together in technology newsroom in Latin America. And she's also co-organizer of Hacks and Hackers Bogotá. Lastly, she's also a lecturer and has received numerous awards for her work on digital media. Very happy to have you here, Claudia. You can start now while I load your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. It's a pleasure for me to be here with you. I'm glad to share with you my knowledge about data journalism and my new experience like a founder of new independent investigative journalism media in Colombia. So I'm Claudia Baez. Thanks for the introduction. And this is how to see the power of investigative data journalism. Data, as you know, is a source. Journalists, for a long time, we use data it's our input, information. Data are input for journalists. And data is everywhere, but in the digital age now, we have an exponential amount of data and information circulating everywhere. So data journalism is an answer to really make a difference in journalism and make a better journalism. Why? Human beings generate information from always. I mean, this is we store more and more information, and in this time there are a lot of information. A way to make better decision making in society is transforming this data in knowledge, and data journalism is a way to make is the power of data journalism. If you have to explain complex stories to people, that people make better decision making. So actually, what is data journalism? It's telling stories with data. Perhaps it's a way to tell a complex story. For me, and the way I use and apply data journalism, and we did it in Cuestion Pública, that is my media, my startup. Data journalism is a practice that use all the technological tools available to go deeper and faster on investigative journalism. I mean, if you know to use these tools and you know the power of technology applied to journalism, you can go fast and deep in information and really make a difference. For example, I don't know if some of you are journalists, but in journalism we have a inverted pyramid about information. That's the basics. Like you have in the top the 6W question, like why, where, how, how like the sixth double question, would you bring all the main information to the audience. In the middle, you have the details, and at the end, you have just the last thing, the font. I mean, not the really most important information. Here in data journalism, we have an inverted pyramid in another way, because the amount of information that we manage require that you really develop skills, specific skills, to trade them. For example, in the top, you have the compile. You have to compile all that tons of information. You have to clean this information and to input context. Context is analyze this information. And when I mean analyze, it's you have to take software to really see if the methodology is okay. I mean, that category, it's why is those category and not another, and why are cells that are not cell, or you have to ask to the databases. So that's the part of context. Combine. So you have to put all together and try to make a story, the story with data. At the end, it's communicate this information. For example, in communicate, you have the data visualization that is very powerful. And now people don't spend a lot of time reading your stories. So you have to just with a really big, nice map, for example, explain in 1 second that you want to say. And these people really is grateful with this if you make a really good visualization of your investigation. And communicate, you have also narrate, socialize, humanize. It's very important that you don't just put the numbers or the figures without a context or without put faces or explain with a case the phenomenon. I mean, it's really important that you put faces to the numbers, because we are talking to the people. We are not talking with robots. It's something that the data journalists have to really keep in mind and make distribute the investigation, the data driven journalist investigation. Okay, the journalism of databases is the same journalism of always, but here you include the ability to tell a compelling story with the scale and the scope of digital information available, and brings incomprehensible information to the audience. So they have the sufficient information to make better decision making and have a criteria to take those decisions. Then you have the ability to create tools to analyze, to bring to the people, to analyze the information deeply and corroborate with reality. In this point, I'm going to make a point here, because it's important. Don't just stay with the databases or the data sets. You really have to corroborate that match the reality, because you have to ask about the methodology, what the source give you that databases. And that's something that you have to do it like a method, because it's not only take the databases and visualize the databases that give you one entity. You have to really ask to the databases and make the right question, like another source in journalism, and try to figure out how they build these databases, with what criteria, with what methodology, and why they are doing that. It's very important. What are the advantages to use databases as a source of a journalism? So it helps to see both things: the forest, the accomplished reality, and also the tree, the specific thing, the individuality. So you can go to the big thing, to the specific thing, and that's really very important to make a criteria and to take a decision. Also, they bring you opportunity to make broaden the journalistic agenda, go out from the every media are talking about. So you have a new topic to talking about with data journalism, and have a new themes, new topics, and new approaches. And also allows you to explore stories that no depends about what's happening immediately in the instant in your country. You can really go outside of that, and it's not depends of immediacy. And the fourth one, it's decrease the dependence of source. I mean, you don't depend of someone that send you the report and call this source every time. If you have open data in the website, in the internet of your country, you don't depend about sources. You don't depend about the official, the general, the congressman. You only have the data, and with your ability, you can analyze it, and you can make a different question, and you can give them different approaches. So this is independence of certain sources. And you also can make better interviews, because you, by your own, you are analyzing the data, you are making a question that you can pose you can ask to your source with precision. And this is something that is really grateful, because you are seeing something that other journalists are not seeing. Why public matters is very important? Why it's important? Data journalism is important because transform databases, data, in knowledge, and this knowledge help to improve society decision making. That's the most important for me. That's why I use data journalism. Before to go to data journalism examples, I want to explain you about what is the process of data journalism. When you are doing a project in data-driven journalism, you have firstly to get the data. And to get the data, there are different ways. I mean, you can just have a developer close to you and ask you to scraping a website if the data is available online. Or maybe you make a FOIA to I don't know, Congress asking for something, and they give you PDF archives, files, or they give you that kind of thing. You don't know how the data is going to come to you. So you have to know how to trade this data to arrive to a digital product, the data-driven journalism. So get the data, filter the data. I'm gonna add cross the data. It's very important to cross the data with another databases that would aggregate value to your work. Then visualize the data and the story. Make the story all the package. So I add here in the presentation this cycle. This is a cycle of work in data making by Hazel Fallas. She is a really, really nice, very professional data journalism from Costa Rica. And she made this a process that I think that match perfectly the work that data journalism make. That is actually understand the topic. This is in the top here in the circle. If you can't read it, it's in Spanish, but it's saying understand the topic. And I don't know why it's moving this. The presentation is moving to me. One moment, please. Okay. Understand the tell me.
Give me just a second. It's a good point that just want to point out to something here, a technical issue with the scrolling.
Okay.
Since the other participants are presenters as well, I'm going to ask the rest of the presenters to refrain from moving the presentation, because it will move the presentation for everybody.
Okay.
So let only the presenter to move the presentation. That's for in this case for Anna, David, or Henry as well. Go ahead, Claudia. Thank you.
Okay, sorry. Okay, let's just I'm here. So this is the cycle of the workflow and data-driven journalism process. We are now seeing the cycle that made Hazel Fayad. She was the data editor at La Nación data in Costa Rica, and I think this cycle explains perfectly the work that you are doing with and driving this project. For example, you have to understand the topic, understand very well, and then understand the data that you got. I mean, firstly, the files, the format of the files that you get, and then the methodology. I mean, when I am speaking about methodology, I speak about the fields, for example. I worked with the conflict armed database in Colombia at the international at the historical memory center in Bogota. The information that I traced was about conflict, Colombian conflict, so homicides, kidnapping, sexual violence, but a lot of that was like 11 categories about violation to human rights. And if people don't understand what the National Center for Historical Memory understands for sexual assault, or what they understand for bellic action, people can misunderstanding the data and try to, I mean, spread fake news and say things that are not, the data are not saying. So that's why it's very important, the methodology, and understand the methodology and why they are putting those categories, why they understand for that term. That's very important. Then, when they understand the methodology of the data and knows the criteria, you can analyze the data. Before, you have to prepare it, clean it. Sometimes the data are not in the right status, and you have to clean it and standardize and optimize. That's a really a lot of work to do. It depends of the amount of data, but it depends also how dirty are the data. But that takes time, and you have to know software specializes on that. There are a lot of software. Open software online, but you have to specialize in to use it. So you prepare the data, you clean the data, you visualize the data, and at this point, the visualization of data can give you like highlights in your investigation. Say, oh, well, this is the state with most homicides in the last 5 years. Why there? Why is Chicago? Why is Boston? All those kind of things. So you're asking things that data give you when you visualize it, give you these insights, and you have to make the right questions. And sometimes it's necessary to come back to the source. For example, it was the police that give you that database. Go to the police and ask them your question that you have to when you were creating and preparing the data. And then you analyze the data. And in this 3 process, in prepare the data, visualize the data, and analyze the data, you go on back. You go on back many times, the time that are necessary to really make a good job. When everything is okay and the data visualization are exactly like it's representing the data in the right way and people can understand, you go to reporting. I mean, you have to make sure that this data is matching reality, that not is manipulating data. I mean, if they see you, this is 15 homicides in that neighborhood, I don't know, in the last month, go to that neighborhood and go to the police to make how they make the reporting of homicides. Just make that the reality it's a match. I mean that's the reality. And the last step is the production. production of the data-driven journalism project. Finally, this is important when we work in Cuestion Pública a lot with open data, and we open data that are not open in Colombia. I'm gonna explain you what we do in the next minutes, but for now, it's important that you know how much open data are in your country. For example, we have two really useful portals in Colombia. The portal of open data, datos.gov.co, where all the public entities by law have to upload files to this portal in an open format that every citizen can use. So here you can find from the 6.5 gigas about public contracting in Colombia until the list of assistants of a meeting in a small town in the middle of the Amazonas in Colombia. So here you can find a quality of information of any kind, and you have to and in an open format. So it's very useful for us. And in the other portal, it's queremosdatos.com that translates we want data.com. And it means that you can send FOIA, a request for information, to public entities, 6,363 entities in Colombia, through internet. Here, the normal thing to do it for a journalist as me is just make a letter, sign it, and send it by certified mail. And the entity, after 10 days, answer you by mail. And so that takes time, and you need information faster. So this portal helps you to optimize time and make you faster. And it's all the emails about people that answer FOIA, request for information, in public entities are inside. For example, if I need information about how many people are treated by mental health in Colombia, I send this information that takes me 5 minutes to send the request, and the most of time they answer on the portal. And if they answer that on the portal, everyone has access to that data. And that's really, really nice, because sometimes the information that you need in this moment, people already asked it before, and you have the data inside, I mean, in the moment. So that's very good for us. Now, before explaining about the most best data journalism examples, I'm gonna speak about Cuestion Pública. Cuestion Pública is a digital media in Colombia. We are focused in investigative data journalism, and our slogan is digging to find the truth. We just we released Cuestion Pública in the beginning of the year in January. You are really, really new. We are a baby on the news media in Colombia, but we are doing something that no one in Colombia are doing. We are investigating the Colombian Congress members well. This is information that they are not available in Colombia. People don't know how rich are our Congress members, because all the information about wealth is doing after, for example, the FBI in Colombia, Fiscalía, catch up a congressman in corruption. So then media start to study the wealth of this congressman, how many houses, how many cars, how many. But after the Justice Act. And now we are saying it's time that people, before they elect, they choose, vote for their congressman, knows what they have and how they get rich on the Congress. So we launched this project through a crowdfunding campaign on January, and say to people, to Colombian people, we are a really new media in Colombia. We are 3 founders, investigative journalism, living with different skills, and we want to investigate the Colombian Congress well. And we want that you help us to investigate that. We need $4,900 to make this investigation. We want to investigate 10 members, Congress member candidates for the election. And we want that you choose what Congress members we're going to investigate. So people donate to our campaign, and in a survey, vote for the congressman that wanted to know the wealth of this person. And we got a really nice answer from the people, because we expected to raise it for $1,800. At the end of our campaign, crowdfunding campaign, we got $7,900, because people saw the importance of to know how they are so rich, and how they stay so many times in the Congress, and why I don't know how rich they are, and what is the money, the role of the money. So we got a really nice answer from the audience with the crowdfunding campaign. And before the Congress election that was in March, we released this information. People could make a best decision making on the Congress election on March. Only with 10 congressmen, and that's it. And it's data journalism, but it's also investigative journalism at the end. If you see, we released 3 important investigations with the most highest findings, and that's how Cuestion Pública may start in Colombia media environment. In this investigation also, we make that people compare their own wage, salary, to a Congress member wage. I mean, compare, but in terms of how many hours you need to get the same wage that the congressman, how many months and years you have to work to get that a Congress member got in 1 year. And in the time that people using this web app, we say to the people, in this 1 minute that they use it to find out, compare your wage with the congressman, how many money in Colombia, in Colombian pesos, the congressman won during the time you were exploring our web app. So that was very shocking for people, saying congressmen members in Colombia are obtaining a lot of money. So that's a way to put the audience with the reality, and realize the impact of phenomena when you use this kind of web app. And this is involving community in data investigative journalism. We asked to the people to tell us what Congress members deserve to this investigation. So this thing make that people feel part of our project, and they ask all time, saying days before the election, Congress election, they asking, where are you going to release the investigation? We need this information. They grow to our social media network, saying, we need this information, release it now, right now. That's really, really, really nice to hear from our community, a really new community that needed that information to make the decision to vote for those people. So we have 3 elections on Colombia this year, election from Congress, election for president, and the last one was anti-corruption referendum. So I'm gonna go fast because I have a lot of time. For presidential election, we make the same thing, we investigate the Colombian presidential candidates election, candidates wealth, but only the 3 more important, the people that really wanting to know the well of these three. And a lot of media were covering the presidential election, but we wanted to find something different that really make the difference in the amount of information that was circulating in Colombia about these candidates. So we find that at that point, there was the World Cup, Football World Cup happening. And we decided that we want to use the format of World Cup football that was popular at the time in showing to the people the team with the presidential candidate we're going to play when they take the power. And the team in terms of contracts, public contracts, and the teams in terms of patrimony. I mean, the president don't arrive alone. They arrive with a team. It's not the same team that the cabinet. It's the team that under the table are moving some fields. So that was we show it on this investigation. The team of contracting and patrimony of those candidates. And you can see we put it all, we make all the outfit about World Cup, social World Cup, just to make it more sexy. Because if you show this kind of investigations in the traditional way, people don't get it and turn the page. And we don't want that. We want that they really concerned about this. And all the, if you read the investigation, it's do it with terms of soccer. Like this team of this candidate is like Real Madrid of the teams in contracting, because this and this and this. In the lateral thing, they have this and this. All the vocabulary was in terms of soccer, and people really wanted and like it and read it, this investigation in that way. So one advice is also make sexy investigative journalism investigations. And this is our last investigation. This is investigate Colombian Congress member. The second part, that is we investigated 10 more voted Congress after Congress election. We selected the 10 most voted congressmen, and we investigate also the wealth. And we launch, publish a lot of stories. So, well, we are a media, investigative, independent media, really new, only 8 months. But for now, we have a really big community around us. We increase incredible our social media network in terms of 3 months, only because the information that we publish, only because we are seeing something that another media in Colombia are not seeing, only because we are putting the spotlight in the information that another Colombian media are not putting, are not covering. So if you want to start a media like this one in your country, you have to really make something different, something that analyze what kind of things are covering the media, traditional media in your country, what topics are not covering, and go there and cover that topics. Here is a little bit kamikaze, we can say that, because it's really go watching the power and make saying to the power, we are watching you. For example, this investigation, it's the name of this investigation, in how to translate this in English is like, we know what you did in the last legislative period. I mean, we know, Congressman, what you did last summer, something like that. And in terms of what is the answer from the power, from these people in power, they don't want us, obviously, and some of them use like legal pressure to us. That's why to publish our investigation, we have a legal editor. a legal editor is a new figure in a newsroom for us, for a startup that small as Cuestion Pública. But a legal editor help us to make a filter before release those investigations, and take an answer to the legal pressure from the powerful people that don't want that this information show up. So this is one advice that I want to give you. The final thing is video and community. We realized that videos are really powerful tool. And if you make a fusion between video and data, that makes really a difference. And people are going to digest your investigation in a best way, and you're going to have a lot of return feedback from people, and you are going to grow up a community around you. So for us, video is a priority, and we're trying to make better investigation in video and data journalism. This is Cuestion Pública. We are 3 founders, Diana Salinas, David Tarazona, and Claudia Baez. I don't have to have more time. Mike, I'm okay on time? Okay.
Thank you. 2 minutes and we should be good.
Okay, 2 minutes. Okay. So the challenge to make investigative data journalism, this is based on our own experience. Having a multidisciplinary team, I mean, even if you don't have all the elements to make a newsroom in the top of the quality to take out data-driven journalism, investigative journalism production, you have to know that people know the language of the other areas. What I mean, for example, you have a investigative reporter that know perfectly the methodology of investigative journalism, and you have also a data journalist like me, for example, that know perfectly all the tools to make the investigation faster, and you know, someone from a developer and designer. I mean, even if you don't know how to make a web app or how to make a treatment of image, you have to know the language that they use. In that way, if all knows the language of the other areas, we can make a really a better workflow to make this production. And it's better if you put your shoes you put you on the shoes of the other. That's another advice. The challenge of this kind of investigation was that coordinate a multidisciplinary team, and also optimize journalistic investigation productions. We have really tight deadlines. I mean, Congress election, that was one day the election from Congress, what day the election of president, what day of a referendum. I mean, and you have to release this investigation before that day, because if you release the investigation on the day, people don't take the time to make the better decision. I mean, it's too late to release the investigation. So investigative journalism takes a lot of time. So you have to optimize resources, you optimize the time. That's one of the challenge. How do you optimize investigative journalism production and keeping rigor and data precision? That's really hard to do. I mean, because if you release this investigation without precision, you lost credibility, and it's not worth it. I mean, you lost everything if you were credibility. And another challenge is planning and deadlines. How to know how to plan in this kind of project, and how to be respect deadlines. And the final, it's legal issues. Really take care if you are doing media like Cuestion Pública. It's watching the power and really with against power. We need really partners in the legal area. because the pressure from the powerful people comes from the legal, and that can destroy your media. For the live thing, quickly, just to show you, this is the data journalist. This is one visualization that explains you what happened with the anti-corruption referendum in Colombia that happened that last Sunday. So, Mike, just to show the people, can we take the link to this, the anti-corruption? Is this one? It's just to show you this. It's for example, that was making for data scientists in Colombia. One, he released this one day before the referendum in Colombia, and people didn't understand why we lost the referendum. I mean, in Colombia, happened. We had the opportunity to make a anti-corruption referendum, and people didn't vote. I mean, people voted, but not the necessary to make that this point as these laws go straight to laws. I mean, we lost anti-corruption referendum in general. So these data scientists explain what people vote in Colombia, and in the blue color, it's the states or departments where the anti-corruption arrived to cross the limit of participation to approve the referendum, and in red was the states or departments that didn't get the umbrella, call here umbrella, the limit of participation to that referendum goes to law and was approved. So when you see it in the permits, they explain it's not the reality. The reality is seen by a small bill. I mean, like village, and this is how it looks: the votation by village. But here, if you take the geographic area, it's different. For example, we in the Amazonas, we don't have a lot of people, but it's a large area of land. So they make the same map, but by geographic area. And then the number of votes. I don't know why it's not okay. So this is the storytelling is telling you why that visualization is not the right one to read the results, and this really helpful to people to understand how to read a data visualization. And then he said the best way is that you see it, but bubbles, but not bubbles on the tape on the map. That bubbles organized in that way. Exactly. In that way. This is the right visualization, because you can see in the bubble by a number of people that live in that city, and the colors if they obtain the necessary votes to approve the referendum, and you can see really what was the worst village in the referendum anti-corruption, and why we lose it, and here by region. So this is a really interesting way to explain to people in a pedagogic in a best way how to read data visualization. And that's it. Thank you. If you have questions at the end of the session,
Thank you very much, Claudia, for your presentation. I appreciate all that a great deal of information provided. Very important.
Yep.
There's traction in the chat room. There's comments and questions. I encourage you to look at those and wait until the end of the presentations for the Q&A. But thank you very much. Great cases, great insight for data journalism. Okay, so I'm going to have David now. I'm going to ask him to turn his camera on, and Claudia, if you can turn it off, we'll turn it back on at the end, and that way we can start. I'm going to introduce David. Let's see.
Okay.
Great, thank you very much. So, David Hidalgo is the news director at Ojo-Público, a digital investigative media outlet from Peru. He is a writer and an author of the book La Biblioteca Fantasma, a non-fiction story of the trafficking of Asian and rare books in Peru. Also wrote Sombras de un Rescate, a book that looked for the traces of the last armed action perpetrated by a terrorist group in Peru. He also directed the team of the Stolen Memory Project, a transnational investigation of the trafficking of the Latin America cultural patrimony, investigation that was awarded with the third prize at the 2016 Latin America Investigative Journalist Award. He was also a member of the Peruvian team who received the Data Journalism Award in 2015 for Best Investigation of the Year, granted by the Global Editors Network, and he received the Human Rights and Journalism Award twice in 2006 and 2015. David Hidalgo was a fellow of the 2009 Edward Murrow Program for Journalists, organized by the United States Department of States of the United States of America. He was editor-in-chief of Etiqueta Negra magazine and awarded publication of narrative journalism. It's an honor and a pleasure having you here. David, thank you for joining us. You can start your presentation now.
Hi. Well, thank you for the invitation for this presentation. I'm going to talk about the experience of Ojo-Público working with data journalism in Peru, and as the title of my presentation says, the need of an upper government, because there's a current discussion in Peru of what are the implications of having all the information or the public information opens to public, and there are some measures by the government in order to open the information to the public. But there are also regulations that are actual restrictions to the access to the public information. So data journalism, as Claudia probably said, it's a new trend of journalistic investigation based on big data. That means that the journalists now have a powerful tool for investigating and for doing some research based specifically on numbers and data, frequently produced by official institutions, but not only that. And we could, in the experience of Ojo-Público, this translates, this concept translates to this kind of work. We work with, we do investigations with public data. That means that we collect some information from public institutions through requests of access to public information based on an act that was published in 2003. And we also work investigations with leaked data that you probably have heard about, the Panama Papers investigation or the Paradise Papers investigation, or I think that it's more known the case of Edward Snowden and the work that discovered the surveillance, the massive surveillance by the US and the whole world. And that investigation began with a leak that was well known in the whole world. Well, and we also work with investigations based on build databases. That means that we collect information from different sources. Some of them, or part of the information comes from public institutions, but another part could come from an academic institution, and the other one, the other part of the information comes from our own research, asking or collecting information in the ground. For example, if we go to a town in the Andes, we collect names. We're working, for example, in an investigation that is related to human rights violations in the Andes, in the mountains of Peru. And this problem is not well studied and is not well registered by the public institutions. So there's a lot of information that's not known until now. So we go to the field, we collect the information, we collect names, situations, and every kind of information that we think could be useful to explain a problem. And we build a database that is, for example, puts in an Excel, in the format of Excel. And that information that's information that the government institutions does not have, and the academic institutions or the civil society either. So we build that databases and we start investigations from that on. So what's the relation of this work with the open government concept in Peru, for example? As I said some minutes ago, in 2003, the Peruvian government approved the Act of Access to Public Information, and this Act establishes these 3 points, very important, that all information held by the states or the official institutions is presumed to be public unless there's a specific order or argument, for example, the national security or something like that, that express specifically forbids the release of that information. But unless that, the whole information produced by the official agencies is presumed to be public. The second point, very important, is that the state, the official agencies, has to do something in order to guarantee the free access of this information. But this is very important because before this act, the attitude of the officers and every public officer was very rejectful to release information. So from this act, all the officers had the obligation to provide and to take all the measures to guarantee and provide the information to the public and for journalists, of course. And the third point is that the state has the obligation to deliver the information demanded by the people in application of the principle of publicity. This is important in Peru because in the recent years there have been a lot of social conflicts related to the lack of information for example, related to the extractive industry in the Andes. So the people didn't know, for example, what's the amount of water or the license to use water for the mining companies, for example. And that's public information because the state, the government has the obligations to tell the people how many licenses has been given to the major mining companies in the recent years in order to know what's the use and what's the access to such a principle and such an important resource. And other issues related to human rights have also implications to the access of the information that people had in the past. So this third point is very important for us because it says that it's an obligation of the government to give the information to the public. And that's a very powerful tool for journalists in the way that I'm going to tell next. This is Ojo-Público. Ojo-Público is a digital investigative site, media, in which we publish some stories, and we consider ourselves a lot of innovation for journalism because we try to work with a methodology that is a mix of technology, the journalistic practice, and every innovative tool that could be developed by our team. So we develop, for example, news apps. We develop visualizations. We develop search engines, for example, for our investigations in order to guarantee the easy access for the public. And I'm going to show you some of these examples in the next slides. And that's why we consider not just an investigative media site, but also a lab of innovation for journalism. We try to use all the digital tools. We try to explore in order to find new ways to tell complex stories and to explain complex stories for the people. According to the last slide, and the slide in which I talked about the kind of investigations, we have developed a guide that we use in training the new journalists that come to our organization. And this guide says that for explaining our project, that the process has 5 steps. The first step is the collection of data, and that means that we need to know, for example, if we try to analyze and to explore and report about an issue, the first thing that we need to do is to ask if there's public information on that issue. Where is that information? I mean, what's the agency that has the information? If there's no agency with that information, we need to know if there's a public institution, an academic institution that has the information. And if that's not the case, we need to know if we have to build the database. So that's initial exploration on the issue. After that, we need to clean the information because, as Claudia said, journalists cannot be so completely confident in the accuracy of the information that comes from the public institutions, because there are a lot of problems for them, in Peru at least, on the public information. For example, it's usual that the officers just stay for a brief period of time in their position. So when another officer comes and continues the database, the official database on any issue, the usual problem is that he has not the same concepts or the same preparation or the same interest in working in that issue, and that could have some problems in order that the databases have different concepts or different accuracy, different levels of accuracy in the developing of the database. So we cannot be so confident, and we need to clean that information. We need to report on that numbers, on that data, in order to know if all the data is correct. For example, the names of some people is correct, and the numbers of sources or anything that we can be searching for is correct. And we need to know if that information reflects in a correct way what's going on in the reality. For example, some years ago, there was an investigation, I think it was in Costa Rica, and there was another investigation in Washington, in which the reporters received some information from the public agencies. And in one case, there was a situation in which the public agency related to the education said that a number of young people, a number of young students were receiving the public aid for example, their postgraduate studies or graduate studies. And the information said that a group of those young men or young people were kids from people that have good income, and that they were not poor, and the aid was supposed to be for the poor people. So at the beginning of the investigation, the reporters thought that that could be a story on some people taking advantage or a public aid that was supposed to be for the poor people. But digging in the cases and going to the field, as is the obligation for every journalist, they found that these kids, these young boys and girls, were daughters of, or were daughters and sons of officers that have abandoned them. So they were not part of families with good income, but were part of families that were broken from separated husbands and wives, and that exposed another problem, that was that that the public program was financing the obligations of some irresponsible men that were businessmen or officers that have abandoned their families. And that was a finding that was not in the data, but was discovered going to the field. And so that's why when we received some information, we didn't assume that the information represents. First of all, we don't assume that the information is correct. We need to check it out, and after that, we need to go to the field in order to understand that if the information, the data, reflects specifically reality. And that's the second stage of the process of an investigation. After that, there's a stage of cross-reading, we say, an analysis. After that, there's a verification process, and after that, presentation. I'm gonna go fast on this because there's a lot of things that I want to tell you, but this whole thing means that we need to work with data, we need to how to find the data, we need to clean the data, and we need to know how to expose the data to the public, because the final goal for this work is to explain complex issues to a common reader that could go to our webpage and try to find or understand a situation. So, what have we done? What are our lines of investigations or work? We are interested, for example, in corruption, in human rights, and organized crime, and environment, and corporate power. These lines of work are very, as we are an investigative team, we try to go deeper and sorry, there's someone who is moving my presentation. Mike, could you help me? There's someone who's moving my. I'm gonna continue. Well, as I said, these are our lines of investigation, and as we are investigative reporters, we try to use the data in order to dig deeper in every issue that we try to cover. For example, in corruption, we try to ask for information about the income of the public officers or the candidates, as Claudia said, or the ministers, or even the president. And we have, in the past, we had some troubles in order to receive that information, because when the state, the government, understands that giving the information to journalists could be so dangerous for their own stability, they start to close the access, and they start to put some arguments that are not correct, but it's a position in order to close the access for information so important as for example, the assets of the politicians, the assets of the officers, in order to know, for example, if the income or the assets have increased during their terms. And that's numerical information that could reveal problems of corruption, could be sign of possible corrupt lines of work for journalists, for example. And that's the same for human rights, and we can, for example, in Peru know how many victims of the internal conflict are still missing in Peru. How much money has the government given to repair the victims and other situations. That's the same, for example, if we try to know what's the official information on drug trafficking or the traffic of cultural patrimony, as I'm going to show in the next slides, and the other issues. And one important point in the recent years is that the data, the access to data, allows to investigative teams like us to start digging in corporate issues and to know what's the dimension of the corporate power and how to explain to the people what the implications of that big corporate power in current and common problems, like, for example, the access to healthcare services, and the access to, for example, the coverage of the insurance that are problems that the regular people have in the everyday life, but or they usually doesn't understand that these issues have to do with decisions that are taken in the highest levels of the corporate power in Peru. So we're trying to investigate using data, public data, and that has been a very important issue and line of work that we have been working on in the recent years. We work in different formats, and this is some of the next stages of the work after the beginning exploring with data. When we have the data, when we have the findings, we need to know what's the better way to explain this information and to give the information to the public, because we're not scientists, we're journalists, and we need to explain in a better way what's a problem that some people doesn't want to be known by the regular citizens. So when we are confident in our information and when we have worked with our methodology, we need to know, and we decide to work in long form or to develop digital tools that could be useful to understand a problem, or to work with visualizations, or to explore digital storytelling. And this was a very interesting experience that we had in the past. At the beginning of Ojo-Público in 2014, we explored to explain the impact of the extractive industry, focusing on gold, the gold mining in the Amazon. We try to explain all the impact in the environment with a web documentary. In this web documentary, for example, you go to our platform, and in this platform you can go for any, it's an exploration in 5 countries, and you can go to any country. You can start the exploration at any country in which you want to start. For example, you can start the exploration in Peru, or in Brazil, or in Ecuador, or in Colombia, and the tool gives you the opportunity to choose if you want to go to the field, or you want to go to the public agency to listen the interview to the officer, or you need to go to, or if you want to go to the expert and to hear what's the explanation of this problem. It's very interactive, so it's very useful to give the reader the opportunity to explore. That sensation of exploring a case, exploring an issue. It's a strong tool to explain a very complex issue. For example, these are long forms. Our platform is very adjustable, and these are some platforms. The first one, if you see the arrow here, this is Memoria Robada. It's a platform that explores the traffic of cultural patrimony of Latin America and the whole world. And it's based, for example, in more than 2 million data obtained from the Interpol, the public agencies, and in database. And it's a part of that exploration. That part of that investigation was based on build database. The second one is and story, whole text, and with powerful photography. And I put this because this is an example that we try to explore any story with all the tools and the extension that it requires. And for example, this is a story that has 5,000 words that could be unimaginable, unthinkable in a paper, for example, or in a magazine, it could be very, very difficult to find a story of 5,000 words in a regular media in Peru. But as a website, we can put a whole story with videos, photography, and all the resources that could be could offer a better experience for the reader. And that's the same for the last one, La Carretera que Corta el Amazonas. It's a story on a highway that was built some years ago in the heart of the Amazon, and that is putting in risk one of the most important reserves, natural reserves in the Amazon. And our regional governor gave authorizations to build that highway, and that's I would say that it's environmental crime. So this story used, for example, videos filmed by drones, and use some maps and interactive maps and a long story, and that's an example of that we try to do in a long form. We have developed some digital tools. For example, the first one, Suprema Fortuna, is focused on the assets of the judges in Peru, and this is an exploration of what was the evolution of the assets of these judges during a period of time that was for the last 10 years. And it's very important because in the recent years there's currently a scandal in Peru related to corruption in the judiciary. And when we go to this platform that was published in 2015, we found that the people involved in this scandal had some important signs of corruption in the evolution of their assets that were published in this tool, and at that moment nobody could imagine that at any moment it could be related with this problem. But I'm gonna go a little faster. So just to tell that this the other ones are tools that are developed with public data related to the prices of the medicines in Peru, or for example, the history of the medical medical personnel in the the private sector in Peru that were, for example, the private health care sector in Peru was an issue that never explored before in a journalistic way, for example. And we try to explore that because we know that the money is one of the corporate power that have so much money, have committed some crimes that are not well known by the people. We try to explore also visualizations on corruption that allow us to explain the people in a very easy way. For example, what's the amount of things that are the government gave to some corrupt people, or the evolution of the assets of functionaries, or the destiny of the map here shows, for example, the travels of the congressmen to other countries, and this allows us to start to explore if those travels were in an official mission, or were for private activities that are covered by public resources. So it was a very important exploration of the use of power money by the congressmen. We use also another digital storytelling with new platforms, with new digital tools. We try to do with new formats in order to expose our information. And how it will work? Well, to be fast with this is we always try to understand that this is a time in which you have to consider, for example, 4 points when you work with data. That the limit of data is, or the amount of data is has no limits right now. You can receive a package of 11 million documents. That was the case, for example, for the Panama Papers, and these documents could expose a corrupt situation that involves several people in several countries at the same time. And you need to know that this amount of data need to be explained in a complex structure for the people, no? And the last consideration is that you need to work with digital security in order to not expose your sources, and we can explore that in your questions. Yes, this is digital security is a very important concept that you need to work with in order to work with pieces in investigative reporting. The unlimited. This is the dimension of the data that you can work with in these days. The global scope is that, for example, these are databases that expose information on enterprises in tax havens around the world. Some years ago, regular journalists could say, well, this information, it has nothing to do with me, but the recent investigation, the recent cases showed that these databases could be very useful in your country to follow the money from your country to another countries or jurisdictions. And the whole this concepts need to be explained. You need to explain complex issues in a very easy way to understand for people. So that's another issue that we talk about in the next minutes. Sorry for the fast. A second point that I wanted to know is that this big dimension of data needs, in the recent years, had required for journalists to work in a collaborative way with another teams or journalists or freelance journalists in different countries at the same time. So Memoria Robada, for example, was worked in 5 countries at the same time by at least 8 reporters in Mexico, Argentina, Guatemala, Costa Rica, and Peru. So these kind of investigations are possible, and not only possible, but a need in the current stage of the digital era. The big pharma project was also working in several countries at the same time, and it required for reporters to ask information to the public agencies in 5 countries at the same time, and to work and to mix the data in order to build an important, in order to work on important investigations to follow the traces of some problems across more than 1 or 2 countries, and the third point is the challenge of experimentation, because when you know that if you in your country there are some limits of data, you need to know that there are some ways to build data by your own, or you need to know that there are some sources or tools that could be useful for start to work with data. when you have a small team like us, and I mean that Claudia told about it in her presentation, that they are also a small team. We can work with another teams in other countries or in other cities in our own country in order to work in a project and with a big problem in several countries at the same time. And after all that, when you have your investigation and you have the information and all the pieces of the story, you need to work and to explain in a better way and to use all the informations, all the digital tools that are available in the web, in order to not only do very accurate work, but also a very compelling and very fascinating way for the readers to provide experience to know very complex issues. Just an example is that what's the effect of finding data is that you can explore ways for doing fact-checking, and this is a map that exposes part of the organizations that are working with fact-checking based on data in the world in the recent years. And this is a map with the recent 5 years, so maybe we can talk about it if you have some questions about it. Well, I think that
thank you very much, David, for the presentation. Time has moved on, certainly, to presentations, very important insight on those. So thank you very much. David, I encourage you to look at the chat. There's been reactions there, questions. Take a look at that, and we'll see how we can accommodate that during the Q&A. So I would like to ask Anna, our final presenter, to turn her camera on, and we're going to continue with her presentation. Thank you, Anna. While I load here also your presentation. Here we go. Okay. I still cannot see you, Anna, so make sure you turn your camera on. Anna Tuduri is 20% from Uruguay. She holds a degree of the Faculty of Law from the University of the Regional Republic of Uruguay. She researches on topics such as environmental issues, privacy, surveillance, intellectual property, and digital rights. There is a great case that she will present, being awarded actually, and she will explain about what this is. So thank you very much, Anna, all the way from Uruguay, for connecting with us. Go on.
Well, good afternoon to everyone. Thanks for the introduction. Rio Abierto is a project of La Diaria with the collaboration of researchers from the Faculty of Science of the University of the Republic, with the support of Latin American Alliance for Civic Technology. I would like to say something about La Diaria. Are you listening to me? Because I don't listen.
Yes, you're okay. Yep.
Okay. La Diaria is an independent media. We are new in this field of the data journalist. So our team is new, and we are a female team that the central core of this project is integrated by La Diaria project manager Lucia Pardo, who acts as a coordinator, Natalia Ubal, who is in charge of the journalistic part, Silvia Da Rosa as a computer engineer, and I as a lawyer, data collector, FOIA, and so on. Why Rio Abierto? Well, the origin of this project comes from the controversial installation of a new pulp plant in Uruguay by the Finnish company UPM. An expert at that moment said that the situation of our rivers is extremely critical. So Rio Abierto aims to democratize access to information on the quality and the management of water in the basin of the Santa Lucia River and Rio de la Plata River. To do this, it uses information visualization tools and promotes awareness and citizen participation actions from the care of key resources such as water. So, if I can move the presentation to the here. So, for our project, it's really important co-creation. We want to speak with subscribers, scientists, environmental issues, NGOs, and government authorities about what our information role should be in relationship with this topic. La Diaria is more than a community of readers, it's a community of learning, so subscribers play an active role. 838 respond to the La Diaria survey on the use and care of water and the information needed in this area. In this opportunity, this query can be summarized as 70% of subscribers who respond to the Rio Abierto survey perceive that they do not participate in water management, and 90% consider that the available information is insufficient. However, 72% would like to learn more, and 71% receive recommendation for a better use of a domestic level, 72% participate in workshops, and 10% generate content. So, I think it's a topic that people want to know more and share more, and this project is a good opportunity to make good information. If I can move to another slide. So, in this line of work, the co-creation, we organize workshops with the subscribers, with civil society and public authorities. And in the first one, we defined the main lines of this journalist agenda. So you can look at the picture, and this is an example. This is another workshop we did in Santa Lucia with neighbors, and was so rich because we can notice that people want to know the quality and the problems with water, potable water. So another slide. So in this project, we managed some setbacks, and I would like to share some of them and how we deal with them. The first one is the complex institutional framework of water in Uruguay. So I'm going to move to the other slide. So for each setback, we made a data visualization, and this is the first one. We use Flourish, which is a wonderful tool because you don't need to know nothing about programming or coding. So we are novel in this, and this was a good opportunity to explore this tool, and this is the result. We made an institution mapping of roles and responsibility, and we use this tool to provide an overview of the groups of stakeholders across the decision-maker process and their interaction in terms of consultation, information sharing, and representation. The map gathers information about more than 140 actors and is still under construction. We group the actors by competence, taking as a reference the respective regulatory framework. The information can be classified by sector, government, academia, civil society, among others, and territory, national, regional, local, and international. And it's based on the institutional framework published in the Chart 3 of the National Water Plan of the MBOTMA, and in consultation with multiple and diverse stakeholders. So, the next data visualization is about the social accountability on water management. This visualization shows the effective space of multi-stakeholder participation in management of water. So, the idea of this visualization is show where are the spaces such as the National Council of Water, Environmental and Territory, which were created by law but never came to be installed. So this visualization only shows the effective spaces, not the potential spaces. So nowadays in Uruguay are only 7 effective spaces of multi-stakeholder related on water issues. Only 7. The rest is only potential because are in the law but never came to be installed. So in the second, so the other problem is the data published on the web of each public authority. This visualization shows that only one public authority is published information on portal. So, despite the recognition of the rights of access to information and public participation on environmental matters in the relevant international instruments and in the national policy and legislation, the truth is that the data generated by the component institutions are not public, or their presentation is done in formats that do not facilitate the analysis and generation of information. Open data promotes transparency of government. It is also a way of checking how resources are being used. And if we have data, we can create solutions. So, we try to solve this problem to making freedom of information requests. So, in the period of 1 year, we made 28 freedom of information requests. The chart shows the public authorities consulted and the number of requests made into each one. Despite the promise of the law to ensure the effective exercise of the right of access to public information, in practice there are still details to review. We understand that the data request must be published, standardized, and work with participation of government, civil society, and academia, and citizens. This allows an adequate and more transparent management of water resources in our country. So in the next month, we will have a report about this. I think it's a challenge for public authorities to developing water quality accounting, increasing data available, and quality of the data, because sometimes, but the majority of times, the answer was a PDF, but it was a scanned image, so we can't use that information. So the final product of this project will be an adaptation of open software tool So for that reason, at this stage, we're identifying practical tools and cases on the ground. We identified two problems right now. The first one is the complaints on environmental issues. And so maybe we can try to make a tool who allows to monitoring the system of complaint on environmental issues, or a tool that allows to dynamize the existing multiple stakeholders participation spaces. So for now, it's all we can do it right now. So thanks. If you have any question, I can answer.
Thank you, Anna. That's a great segue to our Q&A. Actually, we have very little time as this time has moved on. I'm going to ask Henry to please come to the microphone and the camera, turn it on, as well as the rest of the participants. The speakers of the day to start what probably will be a short Q&A, but we'll be more than happy to stay as long as the speakers can, and of course as the participants can. But if we can just speed up the process, Henry, for the Q&A, that would be great. So Claudia and David, if you could turn your cameras on, that would be appreciated. Thank you very much.
I have a question. Yes, is this program reserved for this program Yes, hi Mike, can you hear me okay? Are you seeing us?
Yes, go ahead.
Mike, are you hearing us okay?
I just heard you greeting, not anymore. So just go ahead and moderate the Q&A. Thank you, Henry.
Hi, good morning, and thank you, Claudia, David, and Anna, for connecting with us today. Greetings from Belize. We have a full house of participants here, all eager and excited about hearing about open data and data journalism. So we want to thank you, first of all, for the very informative presentations. To dive right in, because I see we're limited on time, I just want to ask a first question from Dwight Neal, and I think this was when Claudia, you were presenting, but I also want to share the question to David and Anna as well. And his question was a general one. Whose job is it to clean the data? And whose data are the correct ones? We all have biases. So whose bias leaves the data most clean? So again, that's a general question. And Claudia, if you'd mind starting for us. Thanks.
Yes. Cleaning data is a really hard job. It depends on the amount, the tons of the data that you are tracking. And it's just uniform, standardize the data. And you standardize the data for two things. The first one is to visualize it, and the second one is to analyze it in the right way. Because, for example, if you have a database with the name of Eric with E in upper cases and E in lower cases, and with K or without K, every name Eric in your databases with difference in those things are going to make it a new category in a software that analyzes data. So that's why you need to uniform and standardize everything in your databases to make a right analysis and to say Eric won like $8,900 finance for that people. I mean, it's the right way to analyze data, and also it's the right way to visualize the data, because you have to bring to your audience the more simple and clear visualization in the way that they can make better decision making and understand what is the phenomenon. That's it.
Thank you, Claudia. Is there anything on your end, David and Anna, that you'd like to add to that?
Hi. Yes. Well, the work of cleaning data, as Claudia said, is difficult, but at the moment we are well trained in working with big databases, because we have developed several projects based specifically on big data. So we are using, for example, during our experience, we learned that there are some tools that could make easy the work. And for example, we use OpenRefine, that is a very useful tool that could give you the possibility to clean an Excel with thousands of lines in a very easy way. There are some specific orders that you could give the program, and for example, imagine an Excel with 10,000 lines, and in that Excel there's, for example, the last name or the name David in three different forms: David with H, David with different ways with different letters, and you can find very easy the all ways in which the name is written, and you could change and uniform all the ways in a very simple step. And that, for example, is a tool that could make it a little easier, the work with data, but that's just a tool that only could help with a specific database. But if we consider the process to build the database originally, that's another issue that involves, for example, to work, for example, to interview a specific officer in order to understand what was the criteria that they used, and a specific agency used to name a specific concepts to build a database. For example, during our investigation on the private healthcare sector, we received another database after a request of information. We received a database that included a concept called the risk average, and for the agency, the official agency, the risk average means the possibility, the average of the percentage of times in which you will be injured or receive or suffer a malpractice in a specific healthcare facility. So we were considering the health risk. It was in the other way. For the agency, the risk average means the possibility that you could receive a good attention at the healthcare sector. And we were considering the risk average as the possibility that you, as a patient, receive or be subject of a malpractice in the clinic or something. And that was different views of what's the risk. The state, the government considered the risk in order that the possibility of fail, the possibility of success. And we consider the risk according to the possibility of fail, because the possibility of a malpractice is of public interest. A regular person needs to know what's the possibility of being injured or receive a malpractice in a clinic. So we were viewing that data, that concept from the point of view of the user, and the state was considered that concept from the point of view of the private healthcare facility. So that kind of things could be could be used frequently in working with data according or depending on who built the data. That's why sometimes you need to interview the person, specifically the person who built the data, to understand their criteria. That's something that I could give you as an example of our experience. And we have learned what are the procedures that we need to work.
Anna has requested
Well, only an advice. Sometimes the database have mistakes, so when you have a database and you saw something strange, maybe it's a good option to ask to the authorities about if this is a mistake.
Thank you, Anna. And Henry, let me add to these 3 answers on that regard. And I know we should start thinking in closing the session anytime soon. Let me add one thing, and I think it replies to, is in response to some of the comments left on the chat. Open or data journalism is going to be as good as the data. Now, these 3 people here on the screen, these 3 colleagues, have it very hard when they have no data, or the data doesn't have any good quality, and that's something that is important to note. And so data journalism is going to be as good as that data. Now, data journalism will be, or let me go back. Data investigative journalism, which is pretty much what they had explained, but not so much so, should be diluted if data journalism goes on. So as open data strengthens in the countries, there is good data, good databases, open data follows the principles set forth by the Open Data Charter, for example, principle number 1, open by default, then there should not be much investigation. Let me explain. If the data is there, you shouldn't go behind the sources that much, and if it's good quality. Of course, that's not the case, and it's not the case right now, and it's going to take some time for open data to be, strong enough with good quality as for journalism to rely solely and only, in the open data. So investigative journalism will continue, but we should see a good speed, or that data journalism taking good speed onwards. And so that's very important to consider. Again, data quality takes, or cleaning data sets takes a lot of time, a lot of effort, and so that obviously is detrimental to data journalism, as you know, journalism tries to get news out as quick as possible, as reliable as possible. So it's news today and not old news in 3-4 days. So a lot of considerations there. That's very important, and thank you for all the insights. Henry, do we have any more questions there?
Yes, Mike. I see that. Okay, I see that Frank had asked a question in the chat box directed at Claudia. I'm not sure if the two comments below, if that's her, Mike. I'm not sure because of the name. But yes, we do have one question here in the participants today. Yes, that is indeed Claudia, Mike. So I think she's asking again for mic and video access again. But we do have one participant who would like to ask a question.
Yes, do we have a similar program going on in the Caribbean? Particularly Caribbean countries, I know there are ways. Is there a similar program going on? And is this program here tailored just for Latin America?
Oh, okay. Yes. Did you hear clearly, Mike? Okay.
Not at all. So actually, if you redo that question, maybe get closer to the microphone. That will be very helpful, because we couldn't really get.
Sorry about that, Mike.
I'm
yes.
sorry. Thanks to the participant.
Yep. Hi, folks. My question is there a similar program going on in the Caribbean, particularly the CARICOM member countries who are members of the OAS? And may I ask, is this program that you are discussing, is it tailored primarily for Latin America?
Okay, so let me respond to that question. We do have, from the Organization of American States, we work with all countries of the Americas, that includes the Caribbean. For open data specifically, there are two platforms. One is the Latin America Open Data Latin American Initiative, only for Latin American countries, and another one is called COI, the Caribbean Open Institute, which work with Caribbean countries. I encourage you to go back. We had and check the videos of two presentations that we had with the Caribbean Open Initiative, where they presented on different cases in the Caribbean. They were not open. There were no data journalism related experiences that what they were presented, but to answer your question shortly, there is a platform to work with countries in the Caribbean in open data. That's COI. And it happens to be that for this session we have 3 Latin American countries presenting on their cases. But in any means, that means that we work with them from the Organization of American States on supporting their projects. They were developed with through different platforms or with different supports. But we're close to them because they're well known within the Latin American open data and data journalism ecosystem. With Claudia, we were in the Summit of the Americas in an open data side event that we have along those lines in Lima this April. Ojo-Público was represented there too, with Nelly Luna, who's not here, but we have David Hidalgo, and also from La Diaria in Uruguay, who were also present there. Ana wasn't there, it was actually Lucia to refer to. So we kind of engage on this ecosystem, but it's not a specific projects. We hope to see more of those projects in the Caribbean, definitely so. COI presented one initiative being developed, and it's in relation to this, in Haiti in a very initial stage. So I definitely will encourage to follow that. And as a matter of fact, Maurice McNaughton, Dr. Maurice McNaughton from the University of the West Indies, who presented on this in the last two occasions, will be with us in the Belize Open Week that we're having in October. So that to say that you will be hearing from the very first source about those projects in the Caribbean, and definitely invite you all today to stay connected with this project and to make sure that you attend the Belize Open Week being organized and programmed right now as we speak. And Mr. Wade there can give you any additional information.
Yes, thank you, Mike. And I was sharing earlier before the session started on some of the developments that we're working on for the Belize Open Week. So yes, thank you for that. I see we have a quick question from Mr. Tench, directed at Claudia. He says, I noticed you use quite a few maps in your presentation. Can I assume you use GIS technology to...
What is the technology to make that map? That's the question? Okay, cool. Yes. Actually, I'm not an expert on that tool, but I know how it works, and I prefer to use CartoDB. And sometimes when you need only insights to know where is the finding in the investigation, I use a lot Tableau. Not for the final visualization, but in a preview step to just see what is the status of the data, and to find how you can enrich the database or data set. So yes, I know quite QGIS, and CartoDB, and Google Maps, and Google Earth, and I think I'm learning about Python and making maps in Python. I think that's the powerful one, because you can really customize the maps in the way that I show you. For example, in the example that I show you, it's Python and it's JavaScript, and it really is better for me to go to that stage. But in an early stage, if you are just exploring and playing with the tools, I think Google Maps it's a good beginning.
Wonderful, thank you for that, Claudia. We have another question in audience, Mike, and I think after this, then we move towards close.
Hi, yes. Claudia, you had a number of countries. You had a number for the countries that has a Freedom of Information Act. I wanted to know, is there like a guideline for all these countries, or it's each individual country that sets like the standards of how the procedures should be done? And I'm only asking because I wanted to do, I wanted to get some data, but when I call like the government office, no one knows how to proceed or anything, but I know that there is a Freedom of Information
thing to do
Act.
Is to know what transparent access to information law you have in your country. For example, I know in Colombia it's early, it's a few years ago. Peru as well, Mexico. I mean, there are many countries in Latin America that have this law to access to information, and this give you rights to ask for public data. I think Argentina has not a law, I'm not sure, but they from the civil society, they are very empowered, and they really promote this access to information to open data in their own without law. So that's important. If you don't have this law in Belize, from civil society, just get together with Alliance, collaborative in a collaborative way with not only media outlets. You can see another kind of organization like NGOs, like another kind of organization that you have the same vision to get access to this information. And the ways to do it, it's I mean, if there is a law to privilege the access to information, you make a for FOIA, that is like request information. It's a letter. I mean, there is like a form that is a template that everyone use, and you have to be very detailed. What are you asking? If you're asking for databases, I mean, it's like I need 7 columns with these files, for example, number of the state, number of population of the state, give me the number of homicides that happened by year, disclose it in that way. And that is, if you are very clear, very detailed in what are you asking to this public entity in your petition to request for information, you are gonna have a better answer. Because if you are in a country that they're really tricky and don't want to give you the information, they're gonna find a way to don't give you the information. So they are gonna make wasting your time that give you one paper and that's not the information you need. So another paper, another request. So that going forward, it's one way to make a public entity sometimes to make that you get disappointed at just say I give it up. I don't want to go with requests anymore. So that's my advice.
Henry, and if you allow me, and for the participant who asked that question, I left on the chat a link to the OAS site that has the access of information model law, and it's got many other resources. You can tap on that link and find plenty of information about that. You have a guide, you have videos for implementation, and so on and so forth. That's something to look at. It's a good resource. And since I did that, I'm also going to point out and say that David Hidalgo from Ojo-Público also left a very good and interesting link. He shared a handbook on data journalism that they developed a couple years ago. Take a look at that. This transcript of this chat will be shared with you as well, so you'll have access to all those links and for you to take a look. Without further ado, Henry, I'm just going to do final remarks and I'll let you close the session after all. I want to thank Cuestion Pública, Claudia Valles. I want to thank also Ana Tuyuri and La Diaria. I want to thank David Hidalgo with Ojo-Público. Thank you for joining us in this session. I'm sure and I hope it's not the last time that we're going to be interacting for this session or for Belize, and so I want to thank you, you personally and the institutions as well. This is the final session of the series that we have put together for governments and for civil society. So I want to thank all the participants sitting down right now at in Belize City and all those ones who are online and were online and left already because time has advanced, and for the participants on the on-site, you're lucky enough you have refreshments there. We didn't have any on this side online, so please enjoy those ones. And I want to thank also the different institutions that were hosting these sites, on-site sessions in Belize. That is University of Belize and the Institute for Technical and Vocational Training. Thank you to both who were hosting the on-site venues for the on-site for the physical presence there as well as partners of this project. So thank you very much. And Henry, I'll let you close this.
Thank you for that, Mike. And again, from Belize, we want to thank Claudia, we want to thank David, we want to thank Anna for your wonderful presentations. It's been very, very enlightening. And I know I speak for all the participants when I say the information is going to definitely be put to good use. Thanks again, Mike, for organizing these series of trainings. As you indicated a little bit earlier, we did trainings in the month of July for government organizations and partners, and now we're wrapping up with civil society organizations. So we want to thank all the participants who've joined us online. We want to thank all the participants here. And again, guys, if we could get a round of applause for our presenters. Thank you. So with that said, Mike, we're going to be closing the session. And again, just as a reminder to everyone, we're going to be forwarding and sharing the links for the videos and all the presentations. And feel free to join us on our Facebook page, where we have all the previous videos and presentations from our previous trainings. So again, thank you guys, and we will definitely be sharing contact information for our local journalists here and participants who want to connect directly with you guys. So again, thank you very much, and have a great day ahead, guys. Bye-bye.